In a world with entirely too many shows about cars, this is another pointless automotive podcast.
Why, hello there, everybody. This is Frank. You know my voice. There's a Chadwick over there. You know his voice. Oh, that's his voice right there.
That's it.
That's it, making sweet music over there. And then we have a third voice. What is
Yes.
that voice? I want to hear it.
Oh,
Ah, there it is. That voice. That hello from the darkness. It is calling for you, and it is a one Zach Miller. Zach Miller is a buddy of mine. He just so happens to work for Cars and Bids because apparently that's where I source all my guests nowadays. And he also is a dyed-in-the-wool car idiot like us. And once upon a time, he used to have a car podcast himself, and so he's used to talking about nonsense. And so, yeah, welcome to the pod, Mr. Miller. Zachary, where are you coming from? Where are you reporting in from today?
calling in from Chicago. Live downtown.
Ah,
This is my zone out here.
the Windy
Nice.
City. Chirac, or is that like derogatory towards Chicago?
That's what the non-Chicagoers say, Frank.
Oh, is it? Okay. All right. I'm
Look
glad
at this
I'm
guy.
glad I can I'm glad I can prove that I have not spent any appreciable time in your lovely town. Um, how's life out there? How's the car scene out there?
Car scene's good. Weekends are packed. Everything is popping up left and right from different shops and dealerships. A lot more dealerships over here now are doing cars and coffee actually more than ever before. So things are busy. It's hard to keep them all in check throughout the summer, but I try to get out to as many of them as I can. And they're doing a lot more like sort of makeshift Pebble Beach style lawn shows in some urban locations now. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, there's always something going on. So Sundays and Saturdays, and they used to do a concourse show up at the Ferrari dealer in the suburbs that didn't last forever, but yeah, there's plenty of action up here.
And Chadwick might have more insight than I because I'm been pretty much a California kid through and through. But cold weather states, you guys get nice and cold. Chadwick hails from the frozen tundras of the Maine vein up in Maine, and so like, what's the car scene there in winter? Does everyone just like pack it in and go home, or what goes down?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, that's what I do. So maybe there's something going on. If so, then I'm missing it. But usually things start to settle down after like end of October. All the events are pretty much wrapped up. People are putting their stuff away. And yeah, we just kind of have to wait it out for the summer to return. And every now and then you get one of those nice 50-degree weathers in winter and someone takes their nice car out, or you see more exotics driving around downtown to soak it up while they can. But
Sure.
you know, roads here are also pretty dreadful. So people try to avoid some of the major potholes and city streets that you find all around.
Yes, it's like you've got like your car enthusiast season, and then like the forbidden season that just like you can't participate in.
Winter season and construction season. That's how it goes, right?
Yep.
As soon as the weather gets nice, traffic is everywhere because every highway is under construction and everything's closed off. But
I've
such
I've got a little bit of an off automotive topic for you. Best place to get an authentic deep dish pizza, and is it Pequot's? I think was the name.
Pequod's is a big one. I'm not the biggest Pequod's fan myself, honestly.
Oh,
Well, lots of people swear by it. I don't dislike it, but
It's pretty tasty.
yeah, it's good. The big one is always Luminati's versus Giordano's. But Pequod's is definitely up there in the tier of top tier deep dishes that people go for.
very good.
Sweet.
I don't know, like, and I like how there's like hardcore like pizza crust purists that are just like, it's not even real pizza, man. It's like New York only, and like, blah, blah, blah. And then like Detroit shows up and like tries to have their own pizza, and kind of nobody cares. That's not what always like the Detroit style pizza. It's not real pizza. It's fake. It's made up. You know what is also made up in my mind, in my head canon? Um, there's this whole ocean of cars and vehicles and things we've never gotten.
Oh,
That they're legendary. They might as well be fake. A lot of them I've never seen. A lot of them I have, and kind of all of them I want. And so Zach here brought it to my attention. I can't take credit for this topic, but Zach approached me and basically said like, hey, like, why don't we just talk about cool stuff we never got, like the forbidden fruit, whether that's JDM or European or shoot Soviet, like I don't know, like and so why don't we do this just that? Why don't we just like each just start talking random cars that we never got and we kind of wish we did, and I don't know, maybe some of them that's why they're cool is because we never got them. I don't know, but The lovely, lovely, delicious forbidden fruit.
We
Who
should
wants to
let
go first?
our guest of honor go first.
I think that's a sound idea.
Yeah,
Lead us off in this dance.
something
Beauty
forbidden.
is that it doesn't even have to be cool stuff. It can just be stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But there's
absolutely.
be a few things on the list where you're like, really? What the hell is that? And I'm just gonna be like, I don't care. It looks ridiculous. We never got it, so it's worth talking about.
Yep.
Yes, you were in the right podcast, my friend.
We're not barometers of coolness, so fire
Quite
away.
the opposite.
So as Frank knows, I was in Germany and England for a bit of time earlier this summer on a trip. So that is where I got my latest fix of seeing all said forbidden fruit, which is always a fun thing for me growing up as I was getting into cars to venture over to different countries and be like, oh my God, what is happening over here? What is that? Why is that called that weird name over here when it's just the Ford Fusion in America? Like,
Sure.
so yeah, always very intriguing to me. But yeah, Frank, I don't know. You want me to just rattle off some of the interesting things I found? Or I definitely had like a hit list of cars I was hoping to see while I was
Oh
over.
boy,
Ooh.
I don't know.
Think.
I don't know. I think maybe just like rattle one or two off, and then Chadwick can rattle one or two off, and then I'll rattle one or two off, and we'll just go in circles till we all like run out of cars or time or both.
Okay, all right. So I'll take the easy approach and I'll start with some wagons since we're always fetching for here. Not necessarily the most interesting car, but I think one of the best looking wagons on sale in Europe today is the Volkswagen Arteon R shooting brake. You guys familiar with that one?
You know the Arteon. Yeah, I don't think I realized that they made a straight up shooting brake.
Yeah, they make a shooting brake and they make an R model that in general
Okay.
that sell here at all. So it's got, the turbo four banger or whatever, and it's just kind of like a Golf R powertrain and an Arteon basically. But yeah, they make a shooting brake model that looks insane.
I'm looking it up now, and
I saw one.
yeah,
I saw a white one. Maybe not the best color, but it looks pretty phenomenal in my opinion.
I just pulled up a photo of one right now, and like from like the rear 3/4 image, it kind of looks like not that different from like a CL63S wagon, or sorry, E63S wagon. Like it's got some AMG proportions.
Like teardrop pinch at the end, where it's like
Mhm.
it's not full box wagon. It's kind of like, shooting brake style, I guess, like coming in at the end like that. It looks really nice. I did see one of those, and then the other one that I really like over in Europe that I didn't see, probably because it's still very new, Genesis G70 also makes a shooting brake offering for Europe that looks, I think, is their best looking car.
This is why we can't have nice things.
We hate wagons in the United States. You guys know that.
Unless it's got cladding and it's jacked up, it's that then it's an. But
It's a crossover, my friend.
Yeah. Well, that's like I don't know. I feel like we don't like wagons because we don't get cool wagons. And when we do get cool wagons, they're like prohibitively expensive, right? Like
apparently the RS6 Avant though has been doing so well. Audi's considering extending the Avant offerings here. Might just be a rumor still, but like, yeah, if you get the rich people to buy the wagons, then I guess they'll bring them over. But the other ones, I don't know. You're not.
man, yeah, I don't know. I would drive. If I think of any sedan on the market, any sedan, if it was available in wagon form, I would rather have the wagon.
Yeah, almost always. Like there's
I can't think of one.
That's a tough one, yeah.
every car has a wagon variant. Like anything that's offered as a sedan or even the hatchbacks, they make wagon Ford Focuses, which is kind of strange to me because it's like making the car proportionally a bit odd because it started as a hatchback and then you're just going like, eh. But yeah, they have them for like every price tier.
Wait, how did that go? What was that noise? Thank you. Okay, got it. 10-4. Cool. Okay, so a pair of wagons off the rip. Chadwick, what's stuck in your craw?
You know what, man? We talked about just a second ago French cars. We didn't get a lot of good representation of the French car community over here, and these are two classic hot hatches that I would love to have: a Peugeot 205 and a Renault Clio. I think those two they look absolutely stunning. Great performance cars, just simple hot hatch recipe. We just don't get it, guys. We just don't get the French car hot hatch action over here.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
Here in like the 80s, right, through the AMC partnership when they sold the Alliance that was
the Eagle Premier.
Yeah,
it's no La car, but
Well, I mean, think about that. Like the Car, like we got the R5 turbo, the Renault 5 turbo. It's just like absolute madness, and that's kind of what that Clio V6 was, like the spiritual successor of. And I have that on my list. Those are impossibly cool. A Clio V6. They just
So
should not
cool.
exist,
Yeah.
but they somehow exist. And they made what, like 2,800 of them or something. Like not a big production.
No.
Um, Although think about like how bonkers that car is. The fact that they made almost 3,000 of it is kind of crazy, and they never sold them in North America. Um, yeah, I would. Yeah,
Yeah,
that car.
I always wondered, like over there in France, where they had a lot of, or just in Europe in general, where they had a lot of those mid-engine performance hot hatches, if that was like as insane of a purchase to that public consumer group as it is to us over here. Like, imagine like knowing someone who said, "Oh yeah, I just bought a new mid-engine Clio." Like, would they just be like, "Oh, cool, yeah, I heard about that," or would they be like, "I'm sorry, what?"
Right.
Like
And
bought
yeah,
a hatchback, like practicality because there's an engine in it. It's like, what did you do?
nope.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Do those? I don't know quite enough about one of those. About those. Those do or don't have a frunk. Do they have like a tiny frunk up
Are
front?
you talking about the modified like rally going ones?
No, the actual like Clio V6.
The production.
I don't, I
Yeah.
don't, I don't think they do. It's
No.
just
Yeah.
mechanical.
Because you still have the radiator and all the power steering and everything. I think they still kept in the front.
Yeah,
You can
so it's like truly the least practical hot hatch in the world.
in the
But it's
world.
sexy and fun. So
Yeah.
it's
Yes, it is. I had it on my list too. Damn it, you stole my thunder there. So I'm gonna replace it mentally with one that I had as an also ran, although it very much is not an also ran. And I like how we've opened it up to the world, but I'm still gonna stay in Europe too.
hmm.
Um, the Ford RS Cosworth,
Yep.
the Escort, I should say, RS Cosworth, um, just silly cool. Um, it's like a little bit of what the closest thing we got to it was the XR4 Ti,
Which
um,
was a Sierra, right?
which was a Sierra, which was a different car, but like they had that weird like biplane rear hatch wing situation
Yes.
going.
So nice.
Um, just Ford Europe stuff. Like I'm bummed that we never
Oh, we
got.
missed out. We missed out big time.
Europe was fire for a long time. Still is. I mean, there's
Yeah.
still the Fiesta ST and the Focus ST over there, I believe.
Yeah, is that the one you get with the 1 liter EcoBoost?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's that. Like I remember they did the ad campaign on that, and they just had like it was like the CEO of Ford Europe traveled in honest carry-on bag. He had a deconstructed Ford EcoBoost just in like his carry-on, and he was like, "This is how compact this engine is." I was able to like carry it on a transatlantic flight, um, which is pretty cool. But yeah, 4S, I could say RS 2000, but that's like
Cool.
too fancy.
Supercar, baby.
Yeah, like that car is just incredibly cool. Um, and then yeah, as I said too, the Renault R5 just to keep on the turbo, turbo 5.
yeah.
Just like it's just they just like those cars don't even really have a firewall. They just have like, yeah, we'll just put like a carpeted box over the engine and like
It's like a carpet floor and then like a little like snap-on, like, I don't know, plastic rubbery part that's supposed to act as sound deadening, but it's just, yeah, that's your only firewall.
yeah, it's to let the fire through in case something bad happens. It doesn't keep it there. That's how you know race car and homologation, right? If it's like
Fire
impractical
extinguisher.
and dangerous. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Dude, we were lucky though, speaking of like the Ford European offerings, we were so lucky to get like the Fiesta and Focus ST, in retrospect, because that totally wasn't something anyone saw coming. Before that, we had the SVT Focus, which was mildly hot, pretty cool car. But man, that was like the floodgates opening. And I was happy. I loved my Fiesta ST. That thing was just unbelievable out of the box. So
I,
fun.
I think conventional wisdom on those cars is that like they're really cool, and they're really capable, but like everyone I've seen with like over 100,000 miles has like kind of fallen apart, and then people just go like, screw it, and they just like turn into a track day car because it's like all the windows stopped working and like the sunroof flew out on the freeway and like just like typical like shitbox car problems.
Enemy
Um,
cars that might happen after you Yeah, after you beat on it.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why, like, I think something like the Corolla, the GR Corolla, the Corolla, um, presumably won't do that because it's a Toyota product, and so those are going to hold their values probably kind of forever to a certain extent, while the Ford ones will just like return to the earth, and then there'll be like 7 of them, and then they'll be valuable because there's 7 of them.
But wouldn't you
Um,
take the Yaris if we had it? Speaking of forbidden fruit.
And a G I still like more.
I think so. They're just
Yeah.
That size of hatch, the Fiesta tier, like sub
Mhm.
hatch, it just works so well. Now I like the other ones too, but like the Fiesta ST, GR Yaris, and the Clio, like you mentioned, the Clio RS is the same size.
Perfect. Yeah.
damn.
Just get the wheel hop, the three-wheeled corners.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like the dimensions are like a perfect box. Like if you were like top down, look at it. Like, um, yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think I'd go Yar ass. Um, what else? What else you got kicking around in your brain there, Zachariah?
All right, I'll go to some weird ones.
Ooh.
You guys remember when MG was sold through the Rover Group, right, in England?
Right. Mhm.
Now it's some Chinese owned, just copycat brand or whatever. But
Yep.
when they were sold through Rover, do you remember the X Power SV and SVR?
X Power S.
Sounds familiar.
I
The
don't know
weird
that I do. If I'm being, explain it to me.
sports car. It was built off of the Cuvale Mangusta,
I
Ooh,
know the
now we're talking.
Mangusta. Yeah.
already a bizarre starting point.
This thing's gnarly, dude.
But yeah, it is. It looks like a kit car. Like it doesn't look like something that came from a semi-major OEM factory. Like it's they didn't make very many of them, but it has just got the strangest proportions. It's like trying to be a wide body like SLK fighter, but also like has looks like it's just birthed from like a very basic like MGF style roadster. Like
Yeah.
It's got
it
like alpha headlights, a TT kind of bubble to it, and what is that? Dodge Stratus grill.
I think the headlights Dodge Stratus grill, right? I think the headlights are from a Fiat Punto and
Okay.
rear lights are from a Fiat Coupe. Those like
Yes.
That looks familiar.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
dot lights they had on the back of that thing. So yeah, it's just the most bizarre.
It is wild.
Talked about parts bin special cars at one point a few weeks
Yeah.
back. This is like just yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they were going for here, but I love the oddity of it.
It's like they saw the Chrysler Copperhead concept
Right.
from like the late 90s, early 2000s.
We
Or I
could
guess
do
that was even
this.
earlier. That was like 90, 96, 97, the Copperhead concept. And they mashed it up with like, I don't know, a Chrysler Crossfire and a TVR Chimera, and just like mashed all of that together and came up with
Like they made a stop
SVR.
Pet Boys or something because the rear spoiler is just and the exhaust
So
everything
cool.
like
Even
someone
the
threw
wheels,
yeah the wheels don't look stock but they are
82 produced.
Yeah.
yeah yeah and I don't know how many of the R they made but they cared enough to make a more higher output version so
It's funny. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like we should get whoever was the head designer of this car on the pod, and maybe they can explain themselves.
I I love situations like this where no matter how big of a decision it was like someone somewhere signed off on this like
Right.
someone in the MG Rover leadership was like stamp of approval let's go. And then the dealers were probably just like, "What the hell is this? Like, we've been selling wagon hatchbacks." Like,
What's funny is I know of a smaller kind of consignment dealership, and they have, and it's just been sitting on the side of their shop, just like on flats, rusting into the ground. One of these Cuvali Mangustas, and I'm like, oh man, you guys got to get that thing running somehow, and just like get it going, because it's not worth anything, but it should still be on the road, you know.
yeah,
Talk about
yeah.
a parts bin car.
They were trying to make this a Halo product, but didn't
Yep.
work out.
Well, somebody's Halo. It was like
Mm.
whoever designed it, it was like their personal Halo project, and then they were like, "Well, glad I can spend someone else's money to make this," and then they sailed off into the sunset. Um,
All right,
but
yeah.
yeah,
I'll move on to something a little more conventional. You guys probably appreciate. I love the Alpine A110 series.
Yeah.
And I know some people think kind of an ugly duckling and it didn't do the retro right, but I think it's spot on. I love it. I love the design. I love the ethos. I love that size of car, the Cayman fighting offerings. Like I so wish that was here because I think it would honestly do really well with enthusiasts.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Like I don't, and you're right about the sizing. Like it's a size and really category of car that like what you have the Cayman and this is in North America, right? Like you've got the Cayman, you have the
Lotus Emira.
but nothing, like basically nothing. Like
Well, you had
it's yeah, like
the Alpha 4C kind of
but
was
even
in that
the
space a
Amura,
little bit.
the 4C, I mentally, I don't know, like
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
like
know. Maybe there's no proper analog.
yeah, I feel like the 4C was meant to be in that category, but they took it too much the like into the I don't know the Caterham sort of crowd where it just feels like it's just more of a track tool and not much else.
Yeah, and then
True.
versus the yeah, like I just I don't know. It's yeah. Long story short is I agree, and I wish we got that car because there's not enough cars that play in that space. And even like the Emira, the Lotus offerings, the Evora, like I almost feel like those are almost probably about the same size wise, but spiritually, you're probably right. That's probably as close as we've got. Um, and so the Cayman is so good that like you almost get the Lotus to be a contrarian,
Yeah.
um, which I'm okay with. I am the automotive contrarian a lot of times, so I'm cool with that. But like, we need a third. We need player three to enter the game,
Mm.
and yeah, that Alpine series, the 110 series, and all
Yeah.
of them back to the beginning of time when they in the 60s and 70s when those cars were in production are just impossibly cool.
Yeah, and they're kind of having that Alpine brand is having like a bit of a renaissance right now over there because they're leaning into it heavily now instead of the Renault RS stuff that they were building. So they're
Mhm.
bringing back allegedly they're going to make a high performance version of the whatever they're calling the new Renault 5 and it's going to be an Alpine version sort of like the old R5 turbo that they're going to come out with and they have all sorts of crazy variants of that A110 as well and it's just like
Right,
yeah,
I'm
be a good
for it.
way for them to get back into the US market if they cared enough, but
Mm.
probably won't happen.
Nah, nah.
We're not
What
worthy.
else? What else won't we get, Chadwick?
Let's go JDM for a little bit.
I like that. I think it's a
Here's
good call.
here's one that it kind of bums me out because we did get the earlier versions. I'm going to go with the good old Celica GT4, the ST205. I love that car. It's just so cool looking. We got just we never even got a GTS version of that model. We got just the GT, correct?
Well, we did correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
we just got a GT, which was just the Camry 2.2 liter, the 5 SFE motor.
Whereas before we
Um,
got GTS offerings, and then obviously we did get the ST 165 and 185. But the 205, that forbidden fruit, I would absolutely love to have one of those, like a nice clean factory one, and just
yeah.
boy, that'd be so fun. So
The
fun.
205 is the bug eye one, right?
Yep.
Yep, with the 4 headlights. Yep.
Did you ever play a fair amount of Sega Rally Championship back in the day, where you would race one of those in like the white, red, and green like Castrol
Castrol.
livery?
Yep.
Um,
And
yeah,
they had those in Forza a lot too. I would always love it's another rally homologation car basically, right? Because it's
yep.
Absolutely. Yep.
Dude, those things came factory with anti-lag. They just weren't hooked up.
So
But that
cool.
was how it was just like disconnected, but just like sitting in the engine bay was anti-lag that like if you wanted to hook it up, you could. Like a monster just like driving around like whatever, Tokyo, just like ripping anti-lag,
Oh
which would
man.
be sick. But yeah, I'm right there with you. Those cars are, I mean, I feel like I talk about those cars to an inappropriate level. That's how much I like those things.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, at Monterey Car Week, which I am back from, there was an extraordinarily clean one there that I was drooling over. It was quite lovely. And you know what I saw while I was down there? Street driving. I don't even have it on my list. It just popped into my brain. I actually saw someone driving an S660, which
Oh,
is the yes.
Wow.
I had that on my list too because I saw one of those in Germany, and I love the small amounts of modern K car that are still out there.
hmm I mean, that's really the only.
Was that in
That car
California?
is. I don't know. It was like Spoon livery. It had like Spoon stuff on it, and so I don't know
Nice.
if it was like an actual like Spoon S660.
Hmm.
And it was there for the show. I don't know if they. Who knows? Maybe they overnighted their whole car from Japan, like all Fast and the Furious style. Um, but it was very cool looking, and I'm always a sucker for K cars. I can fill this entire list with K vehicles. Um, but that car specifically, that's a car I would really, really, really like to spend some time driving. Like, I don't, is it going to be fast? No. Um, but I feel like it's just going to be a giggle fest, and it looked good. It looked straight up good, and is that the last production like K sports car?
I Yeah, it might be. I mean, it's relatively new, right? Didn't they come out with that in like 2018 or so?
It
It's
was before that, but like I don't know,
it
Hmm.
not
might
a
be.
lot before that.
I think they still make the Daihatsu Copen.
Ah, you might be right.
I saw one at the Nürburgring of all places.
Excellent.
That got me thinking about K sports cars. Yeah, that's a good question though. I don't know what other competitors they have right now.
So
Toyota
yeah, that
Toyota was toying around with it a little bit with that SFR thing or whatever they called it, but
right. Which is weird because Toyota like barely played in the K car space. They never really were in it. They just had the Daihatsu. They owned Daihatsu, and so Daihatsu had a lot like the Copan and some other things. But yeah, there's a quick Google search. So 2015 was the first year of the S660. Um, and it looks like up until 2022 it was in production. So it's no longer in production. And between 2018 until end run, they made less than 3,000 a year. So that's
Hmm.
probably why it's no longer in production. Um, that's a damn shame though. But yeah, I'm going S. I'm drafting S660, and was it a third round, fourth round pick? It's a snake draft. It's hard to pin it down.
So
Um,
modern of you. Hmm.
but what else do you think? You got anything else floating around your list there, Zachary?
oh, I got plenty. You want me to dive back in?
Oh yeah, fire another salvo at us.
Try to keep it diverse in category here. So, what about like brands that we never even got our feet wet with or like haven't in a long time? So like I'm thinking about like TVR, Janetta, Marcos, um, Bristol, like
Ooh, Bristol.
all sorts of weird, mostly English sports car brands that are not even around today, or if they are, they're hanging on by a thread. But they made some really wacky cars, and um, yeah, I just love the oddity of those things. There were so many TVRs around Goodwood that I was just like, wow, I don't know if I'll ever see another. What was the weird? Was it the Tuscan? Right? Wasn't it the weird one that had like those like
Yeah, yeah,
They all were fairly weird. Like the Cerbero was pretty weird. I'd love to have one of those.
so strange? But I love seeing them because yeah, they were just like obsessed with keeping that like British roadster sort of design alive, no matter how financially unviable it was, because like how many people bought them, and the people that didn't have them for long because they were super unreliable and had faulty electrics and whatnot. But yeah,
yeah. TVR. I think TVR is kind of. I
and they did sell cars here in the U.S. at one point, right? Like in the '70s, I
In the
think.
70s they sold like
The Tad,
dozens. Yeah,
Yeah.
like very seldom few cars over here, but yeah, they went up until like I think 2008 or so in Europe.
yeah, and I think somebody owns that. Like, I feel like every 5 years, like some new TVR concept car comes out, and it's like,
Every 3 years, they're like, we're gonna make the Griffith, and people allegedly, and you're like, all right, like where is this thing? Like, so I'll believe when I see it. I'll believe when I see one registered by a human.
right? No, I would love a TVR. There was one that kept showing up on an auction site that shall not be named. Just kidding, it was Bring a Trailer, and it was an earlier TVR. It was like a 71 or 72 2500M, which is this really stubborn, like or stubby, I should say.
Mhm.
Really, where the rear end is just like a straight cam.
Shocked. Yeah.
Yep, yeah, and it's got like this tiny bubble back window, and it's hack. But the guy had like a hot 302 swapped into it. And I was like, oh, that looks. And I think it sold for like 15 grand. It was like not, and it was a beautiful build. It was like perfect. And I was like, that is so damn cool. Like I really, really want it, and I couldn't pull the trigger on it. But every TVR ever is weird. And when you mentioned the Tuscan, they actually had their own in-house inline six that they made for those, which blows my mind. Like how they were able to engineer their own in-house like 300 horsepower NA inline six in like the late 90s, early 2000s is just like I don't
Yeah.
know that they were playing
Apparently,
with someone's money.
apparently they bet the farm on that because they weren't around much longer afterwards.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
built it in the farm, they bet too. So
Absolutely.
Do you remember? I think Top Gear reviewed one of those. I think it was a Tuscan in that Mistachrome kind of purple paint scheme. God, that's hot. That is unbelievably hot. Yeah.
Wasn't that the car that was in? Was it Swordfish? It was it was in some
what's
movie
their
with
team?
John Travolta in it, and he was like some spy or super. I don't know. I never saw the movie, but like
Yep.
that was like the feature car in that movie.
I just remember the Halle Berry scene. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well,
John
that's all you need
Travolta
to
was
know.
in it.
In the movie, not Halle Berry. The other,
Potentially.
yeah, yeah, allegedly. I don't know. There's a Richard Gere joke in here somewhere. Chadwick, do you have another one? I've got one too, but I want to see what else you got in your quiver.
How about any Evo before the ones we got? So Evo 1 through 5.
Yeah.
I've got a personal soft spot. I love the Evo 3, but I think the 4 and 5 are just so wild. The body cladding, the huge spoilers, the big hood vents, and the front bumpers were just so aggressive, and those interiors were great with the Recaros with the cool 90s graphic styling. I think those things are unbelievably hot, and I think we got them more dumbed down. You know, the 7 and 8 became more mundane for the Evo lineup, but man, those 4s and 5s are just so good. Yeah, I
Definitely. Which one was it the one Jackie Chan drove a white one?
6, Evo 6.
It was a 6. Okay. I couldn't remember if it was like a 5 or a 6. And what was that? It wasn't Rumble in the Bronx, was it? Was it Who Am I?
Yeah, that's the one. Yep.
Yes.
Because he has a FTO too, right? In that movie, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he like steals it at like horror show or something like that. And then the guy's like, hey, and just like takes off in an FTO. Yeah, those are cool. Speaking of things that would have been profoundly cool if they made a wagon version.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, they made an 8 and 9 Evo wagon, didn't they?
Started with the 7. They had a 7 wagon. Yeah.
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 Kind of like. Yeah, it's kind of like the come on, Brave, the Langnum.
Well, they made the Rally Art one, correct? That was the wagon.
Yeah, it was like a hatchback wagon. It wasn't like a true squared wagon.
Sportback, I think they called it. But
Yeah.
it was as close as we got here, and it was only with that horrible automatic transmission. You remember that weird auto they had that always failed at like 80,000 miles? So that was what you were stuck with. So
yeah, it was probably a Chrysler product. It was probably
Jeez.
vestiges of the Diamond Star
DSM.
project. Yeah, and they're just like, yeah, we'll just take this reject Chrysler one. It's
Aw.
we're dying on the vine in North America anyway, so
Hmm.
to hell with it. I'm
enough.
gonna go. Can I go to a whole continent we haven't visited yet?
Yeah, do it.
Are you guys aware of the storied history of Mopar, like back in the day, like Mopar muscle era stuff in Australia?
Ooh, yes. Okay,
Well,
like
what is he going with?
I'm not super familiar, but I am like I have a touch of like familiarity with like the Valiant Charger and stuff like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, there were two cars I wanted to talk about, but that one primarily was and I believe it was a Chrysler. It was the Chrysler Valiant
You're right.
Charger, which is the Chrysler name, but using the Plymouth Valiant namesake, and then the Dodge Charger. They just like mashed up all North American Chrysler brands. And the cool thing with that was you can get like an inline six up to, I think the top of the line was like a hopped up 340, which was a pretty ballsy small block. But the cool thing was they had what they called their Hemi 6-cylinder, So it was an inline six with a Hemi head on it, non-cross flow, which is weird. But they had like low compression versions up to like a hot like 10.5 to 1 compression, 4.3 liter with like a chunky cam and a header and triple Webers from the factory. And it was good for like just over 300 horsepower in their Chrysler Valiant Charger, which would have been smaller than our compact like Valiant that we got here, which was the compact for North America. And you can get them in all the crazy high impact colors, Panther pink and Hemi orange and on and on and on. And it's just this bizarro thing. Like even that engine, it was like a Chrysler North America reject where they're like, oh, let's replace the Slant Six because it's big and heavy. But then like, well, everyone loves it because it never breaks.
Yeah,
so they
Slant
just sent,
Six, man.
Yeah, so they just sent like the prototype stuff down to Australia because they needed a new 6-cylinder, and they're like, cool, and they developed it down there, and you ended up with like a cool sports car that nobody knows about except for Zach. So kudos to you, sir.
Yeah, no, I've always been so fat. I don't know nearly as much detail as you do on that side, but I've always been fascinated by what appears to be like an alternate universe of Australian vintage muscle. Like it just between Mopar, I know more about like some of the Ford products like the Falcon GTHO Phase 3 and crazy stuff like that. And Holden was making some like really badass cars in the 60s and 70s, and it just seems like, yeah, like they were like, we don't want to be the US, but we're still going to do muscle, and like they just got some really wild products over there.
Yeah, Bogan's gonna bogan, I suppose. The other thing, and this will be my the last bit on that, is they also they had Ute versions of basically everything, right? So like all like the Dodge Darts and the Plymouth Valiants that we had here, they made Ute versions of that from like the 50s up until I think like
They
the
still do.
90s. Yeah, like they still do on a lot of stuff. Like all the Holden, the Holden Utes and stuff are pretty famous. But like you can get,
dude, we got the Rampage and the Scamp. What else can you ask
this
for?
is true. This
Yeah,
is true.
their answer to the El Camino, but they had a practical use for it because people were just driving around Australian outback farms and whatnot, and
Just hitting kangaroos and throwing them in the back to bring some roost steaks back to the what would you call your wife in Australia? There's a name I can't. Your Sheila? Is that what I'm looking for?
That's a good looking woman in Australia, is the Sheila.
Okay. All right. So
hopefully
Crikey,
that's a right Sheila over there.
No rules, just right. That's all I know about. That's all I know about Australia. Any last honorable mentions before we go on down the road and leave the rest to ponder for the crowd to ponder over?
I will add just one car I was really excited to see when I was also in Germany that rounded out the crazy world of Mercedes G-Wagon variants that I have come across. So I've seen there's plenty of 4x4 squares running around the Chicagoland. I've seen a couple 6x6. Were they original ones? I don't know, probably not. But what I had never seen until Germany was the Maybach 650 Landaulet. You guys know what that is?
Does it have a soft top?
Sounds opulent.
It's basically a G. It is basically a G6, or no, it's basically a G. I guess the first gen 4x4 squared, but extended to the wheelbase of the 6x6, but still only 4 wheels, and like Maybach interior with the Landaulet top. So it's the weirdest, absurd combination of all things they did with the G-Wagon, but in one strange package with Maybach thrown on top of it. But they had one in the world, and I was like, okay, I've seen peak G-Wagon now. Like I'm never gonna see it on the street. So yeah, that was cool.
I don't know, like that car is just like just the whole concept of it is just so obscene, and then to add whatever the actual sticker price it is to be that just like deeply, I don't know, spiteful of everyone around you. Like
it's a straight Dubai market vehicle. Like that's what we're talking about here. So
if they legit stretch the wheelbase, though, that's probably a super comfy iteration of that vehicle, though.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like the space between the wheels is literally like you're looking at the 6x6, but there's just all this open space with portal act.
I bet that thing rides amazingly.
It does. You can't even feel like you crushing the pore beneath you. Like you just
That's important.
hydroplaning on the less fortunate. Any Chadwick? Do you have any other honorable mentions?
Yeah, quick shout outs. Some really good Honda products. The EG Civic SIR. We never got the really hot hatchbacks in the day. And same with the Type Rs. You know, it took us a long time to get a Civic Type R in the States. I would take an EK Civic Type R hatch in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would do.
It's a good,
I
perfect car.
I do like me an Integra Type R sedan, which we never got, like the early ones, the late '90s.
Truth.
So those are dope. Stagias are
Mhm.
cool. Back to the wagon. Let's close back out to a wagon.
Yeah.
So Stagia, and then the Toyota version, which they never made in a manual, which is a shame, but people swap them to manuals pretty frequently, is the Toyota Crown Athlete V Estate, which was the one JZ GTE, so twin turbo, rear wheel drive, 2.5 liter wagon, and they're dope, and everyone should own one. I don't think they made that many. I think they made like under 10,000 of them. But they're not that expensive. You can find them from exporters like on the Japanese auctions for like not like under 10, which would be impossibly sick. So yeah, that's it. And there's plenty more forbidden fruit out there.
There's a lot.
So maybe we'll have to revisit this another day. We can get into like the weird like Brazilian market stuff.
Oh,
and
man.
like
Yeah, those pickup trucks that aren't really pickup trucks that have like trunk built into them somehow.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like a four-wheeling a Lotus Europa almost. But yeah, no, yeah, well, this is fun. This was a good, and thank you, Zach, for the excellent choice of topic. Hot off the heels of your travels in Europe, you get to bring the freshest forbidden fruit back with you.
Ooh.
Very cool. Oh, so I think that leads us to the next phase, and I don't think Zach is wearing boots to be shaking in them. Plus, he's a knowledgeable cat. You know, I casually dropped vintage Mopar of Australia, and he's coming in, picking up what I'm putting down. So why don't we do this? Chadwick is going to be queuing up himself the ad for him that he is going to be quizzing Zach, and I will be the lifeline for. While he's getting that ready, I will explain to the listeners and Zach, but I know you're up to speed on how this works, which is what we're doing is our print ad quiz game, which Chadwick here is going to find a print ad out of a magazine for an automobile from the 80s, 90s to mid 2000s. He's going to read the type copy from that ad, maybe describe it a little bit, and he will redact out all of the pertinent and overly identifying information from that advertisement. It will be upon our guest, Mr. Zach Miller here, clad in his McLaren t-shirt, to guess what motor vehicle we are talking about. Make, model, trim would be nice. Year would be extra boner points here. And he gets 3 guesses. We got 10 minutes after Chadwick is done reading said print copy. And I will be here as a lifeline. So Zach, if you get lost and I don't know what this is, you can just ask me, like, do I know what it is? You can ask me for pointers, whatever. I'm at your disposal. Chadwick, are you ready to read this? But first, Zach, are you ready to answer this?
I think so. Let's do it.
All right, do it.
All right, guys, it's going to be a challenging one. There's a lot of specific stuff I'm going to omit at first because I don't want to give it away. So bear with me. My usual 3rd grade reading level might be contested by this challenging ad I've selected. First off, the description of the ad. Everything's written at like a 30-degree angle. So it's pretty cool. We have the vehicle in the upper half of the page. Driver 3/4 navigating a twisty road. The vehicle is in red. So I'm painting a picture for you. The ad reads as follows. Please pardon us for disrupting the entire class. There's some reviews from Automobile, Car and Driver, Motor Trend. We'll get to those after. Maybe those are kind of like bonus points if we need some help. The test results are in 0 to 60 in 6.8 seconds. 178 horsepower at 5,800 RPM, all for just over half the price of a Porsche 968. No wonder blank is upsetting the rest of its class. For here is the fastest blank ever built. 140 mile per hour top end. That's right. 140 miles per hour, blank. Somewhere the blank is smiling. So are wide-eyed drivers who felt the thrust of blank's new. I'll give you the displacement. 2.8 liter. And in the blank way, all this power is ingeniously directed right where it belongs, to the road. That is so important that they said that.
To the sky.
To the road this time, guys. Our sophisticated new traction control system regulates wheel spin to get you underway swiftly and safely. Standard ABS stops you in the same manner. We've also modified the suspension. We call it blank blank to all but eliminate torque steer, so you don't sacrifice handling and ride in the pursuit of performance. The biggest news, blank blank is powerful proof of where blank is headed. Fast. You'll find the revolutionary engine being omitted in this case, and other engineering triumphs at the heart of blank. Vehicles just down the road and at the soul of the unique driving experience we call blank. Blah, blah, blah. Drive the new blank, blank, blank. Here's a phone number.
What's the phone number?
I can't give it away. Frank remembers all the phone numbers from these vintage ads. Sure. 10 minutes on the clock. Best of luck to you.
Oh boy.
If you need any reminders, just feel free to ask. I can definitely reread some sections.
All right, so we got some power and engine call outs, but no country of origin, and nothing immediately is jumping to me around the theme of apparently academia with their headline of what did it say? Like, we interrupt class or something? What
disrupt? Please pardon us for disrupting the entire class.
Okay, so maybe they just mean like the class of vehicles, not like school.
Maybe.
I don't know what that would mean if it was like themed in that way, but okay, so it's front wheel drive car because they mentioned torque steer.
Astute.
175 horsepower, 2.8 liter.
I think it was 78.
178.
78 horsepower from a 2.8 liter engine.
To the front
Right.
wheels.
4-cylinder. 140 mile an hour top speed.
And you blanked out you said the displacement, but it sounded like it's had the engine layout after that, which you blanked out. Did I pick that up correctly or no?
Yes. I think they did it twice. They did it in front of the displacement and then after. So I didn't want to give away the engine.
There's no decade here specified, right?
No timeline right now. No.
It just seems like an endless array of options to shift through. That's right in the center of like just general mild performance cars that could have come from a number of brands and countries during the 90s, I feel like. I mean, they're calling out standard ABS and traction control, which like is table stakes these days. So that makes it seem like it's more of like, ooh, look, we're investing in stuff that matters now from a brand that wasn't prior. So it's probably not a performance brand or one with a lot of performance heritage.
Saying it's approximately half the cost or less of a 968.
Half the cost of a 968, which was on sale in the early 90s, right? So, and it was like, what was that in 90s money? Like,
they were overpriced. That's why they didn't sell any of them. So it's kind of
like, I'm bad with inflation, like backtracking. I don't know.
Oh boy.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, half the price of a 968. So who would be going after what brand would be going after the 968 in the early 90s?
Well, Porsche was struggling in the early 90s, so it was kind of low-hanging fruit. I think it was just they're just using that as a flag.
Boy, not having a country is challenging. I'm just like going through everything. Could it? I don't feel like it's an American brand.
It just coming out here, and I don't know. I think I know what it is. And I'm not bragging. I don't know, but like just reading the tea leaves, the 2.8 to the front wheels at roughly 180 horsepower.
Are you already a Lifeline, Frank? Did I miss the part where you activated
these are things that have already.
I'm trying to think of what Lifeline question would be most
Save Frank for the end because he probably does have it. But if you have anything you want me to clarify, or
Throw out names and you'll say yay or nay, right?
well, you can take a guess. You have 3 guesses, so you can
Okay.
definitely venture a guess.
Yeah. Man, for some reason my head is saying Mazda, but I mean the RX-7 had more power than that, and it also was a rotary, so that's that's out of the question. And the MX, the MX cars wouldn't have even been in the conversation there. Okay, so Mazda's out. Man. Start saying stuff, Frank.
In my head, what is as big a hint as anything is that he had to redact out the layout of the engine.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that a 2.8 to the front wheels in a redacted layout, i.e., it's not something generic.
Yeah, I mean that rules out Subaru because they're all-wheel drive.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking of just boxer and flat engine cars.
Which I couldn't name one that powers the front wheels.
Yeah. So then what are
Perhaps there's another.
Just for clarification, Subaru totally had front wheel drive boxer.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
At time? No, I mean.
Yeah, like the
early mid 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, the early Imprezas.
And Legacies. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And SVX, honestly. You can get a front wheel drive SVX at the end run because they were too expensive.
Yeah.
And when the transfer case failed.
Yeah. When the Pathfinder transmission blew up.
Kind of make you think go in that direction because it wouldn't be. All right, Chadwick, is it a Subaru?
Subaru did not disrupt the entire class in this case. So no, it's not a Subaru.
Right.
I've got a good hint for you that doesn't sell the farm. So the 140 mile an hour top end on the Autobahn.
Okay. All right.
How's that work?
Okay. Yep. So let's see. BMW, Audi, and Mercedes. Mercedes had come out with the SLK, I believe.
We're at 3.5 minutes, gentlemen.
Remaining? Okay.
Audi
things to
didn't
consider. Torque steer.
Yeah. That's a rear-wheel drive. Good call. Oh man, front-wheel drive German cars from the early 90s.
2.8.
Volkswagen. No, the Corrado was rear-wheel drive? No.
It was not. I can see the gears turning.
Wait, is it 2.8 liter
chain-driven gears? Potentially.
Allegedly.
Is it a Mark III GTI?
It is not a Mark III GTI, but you are incredibly close, and I will give it to you that you're right with the automaker. So you have one more guess remaining. You can activate your Frank power if you'd like to have more. Unless you got it. So it's definitely a Volkswagen, front-wheel drive.
The Scirocco was gone by then, right? Late 80s. Corrado.
So the hint I was thinking was I think that displacement is VR6 is what I was picking up. The 2.8 liter VR6.
Yeah. So
world first 2.8 liter inline V6.
Inline V6. So yeah, same deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So is that not the Corrado?
Final guess?
Wait, hold on. I feel like I'm missing something in Volkswagen's history here.
You'll have one more guess after that, right? This would be guess 2.
Because I guess Subaru, and then I guess.
Oh no, this is guess 3. This is guess 3.
3. I'm just gonna go for Corrado because I can't. Is it Corrado?
This disruption to the entire class is caused by a little vehicle called the Corrado SLC VR6.
Oh, all
He's
right.
done it, ladies and gentlemen.
You hot dog, you're a wiener.
Took some lifelining, but yeah, we got there.
We got
Yeah.
there. Yeah, you know what? I thought it was Mark III GTI. I thought it was going to be GTI, not the Corrado. Corrado actually popped into my head first.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, they wouldn't say fastest Corrado yet. They'd probably say fastest GTI. So that's why I thought that.
Yeah.
This was the fastest Volkswagen built ever
What-
built. 1990. This is 1992.
92. Okay. Yeah, Corrado popped into my head first too once we got to Volkswagen, but didn't you guys am I remembering correctly that you guys wasn't the Corrado an answer to one of these not that long ago?
The G60 supercharged one.
You did. That's the trick.
Remember
This-
getting
This
because it
is
was
the one to have.
the one where you called out the active arrow, and I remembered. I was like, "Yep, the Corrado had an active spoiler."
Yep.
Yep.
I didn't think there'd be another Corrado in the mix here, but how about that?
The
Yeah, how about
SLC
that?
VR6. This is the one to have over the
Absolutely.
other one. 100%. Good looking
All right.
cars too, man. Just a moment of time before these become valid.
The all famous quiz.
You nailed it,
did it.
man.
Alrighty. We need to make some sort of badge or something that we can like send out to people. Like, I passed. Like, yes. Very good. Well done, sir.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
had to omit the VR6 because that would have given it right off the gate, right?
Yeah. There you go.
Good
Well,
job.
Well done. Well, we are kind of at the end of it, but we real quick, this is the time of the programming where we normally discuss our various failures in projects, or at least in my case, it's usually failures and it's usually Chadwick's triumphs, and not like TR6s and 7s triumphs.
Bonnevilles,
but,
yeah.
Exactly. But before we do that, let's turn over to the guest. Zach, you've got something super reliable behind you, so you probably had to do absolutely no work on any sort of project stuff. What do you have cooking in your garage?
Well, here's where it's interesting. The Forerunner is bulletproof, but I feel like I've gotten to the point where I've just accepted I am like slowly restoring it. So I'm like looking into every little thing that might come up and seeing if there's something I should get ahead of, and just sinking too much money into it, to be honest. But whatever, I'm enjoying it still, so I don't mind. But not so much a project, but just sort of a I don't know what the right word is, like not a gremlin, but just something that's been bugging me. The last month, maybe month and a half ago,
Mhm.
the revs or the engine started making sort of almost like a half supercharger whiny noise at idle and while driving, and couldn't really figure out what was going on. But my reasoning and a little bit of research thought, oh, it must be the alternator going bad, right? Like it's the original alternator. Sometimes they make those little whiny noises because they're driven by the belt, and then they just kind of, I don't know. I don't know the mechanics of the alternator and why it does that, but I was like, that must be what it is. So I went to my dealer just because I wanted to get it done fast, and I was like, hey, could you like diagnose and give me a new alternator?
$2,100.
It wasn't that bad, honestly. But I was surprised. But while I was in there, I wanted them to check my battery, which was a 30% charge. So I was like, okay, I'll get this all just done before the winter comes around. So I got a new battery and an alternator, picked it up, noise is still there. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I have a new alternator now, but I definitely failed what I set out to do. So now I just get to say it's got a brand new battery and alternator, but nothing else changed. So here I am trying to figure out and research what that noise is, because it didn't do it for the 10 years that I've owned it. And the opinion seems split. There are people on the forums that say it's totally normal and that their modern SR5 does it. And there are people that say, no, it's actually the something with the timing chain, or it's the power steering pump or whatever. Like, I don't know. There's no clear answer. So I'm just kind of letting it be for now.
Oh, you said at idle as well?
Yeah, it's when the car's on at all. So you'll hear it when you start it up and it's at idle, and then it'll climb with the revs.
Does it sound like it's coming from the front of the motor or the
Like it's an accessory drive thing of some sort.
Okay.
I asked the dealer to run the car with the belt off, and I don't think they did. But that would help, great engine gremlins, but yeah, beats me. If you have any ideas,
So is it a whine or a squeal?
it's a whine. Like it honestly feel like I've been playing this game where I just start up my 4Runner. I'm like, hey, it's supercharged because it sounds like almost like a supercharger whine.
I was gonna say, like, if it was while you were driving, maybe a diff. I've heard when differentials start to go out, they make a very high pitch, very similar to supercharger whine, actually. But
Yeah,
that's
no,
not the case at idle for sure.
really from the front of the car, from the front of the
Okay.
engine. Um, and it just
Yeah.
kind of doing it in like mid-July out of nowhere. I don't know.
Could be a pulley bearing. If you have someone stand under the hood or be in the hood area, you can make like a conical shaped piece of plastic with like a screwdriver, put it on each pulley or each accessory, and listen to you start the truck up. They'll be able to tell you what's making possibly, because sometimes bearings do howl a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. It's a mystery. How many miles do you have on the truck?
155. So it's still a baby. Like it shouldn't be having weird little
Barely
hiccups.
broken in.
Yeah, but some of the stuff's getting a bit rusty, so you never know what to look out for sometimes.
Oh, Midwest problems.
Yep.
How about you, Chadwick? What are you tinkering with?
Ooh, me? So the trooper did the brakes on that. When's the last time you did a brake job on something with a locking front hub and had to take the hub assembly out just to get the rotor off? Because it's been a minute since I've done that. And the whole time I was doing this job, I pictured bringing it to like a quick lube place, and this kid's like trying to undo all the sections of the like locking hub, and there's like springs shooting everywhere, and they're like, I'm not putting this thing back together.
Right.
So it's been a while since someone's been in there, because it was like most of the grease was kind of dried up. So it was a good thing I did it anyway. But I did all the pads, rotors, put it all back together, did a function test to make sure the axle wasn't still spinning when I had it unlocked. I didn't mess anything up, so that's good. Everything was pretty old. The rotors were super deeply grooved. Pads were like under 50. The brake fluid, like just pitch black coffee. So it's been a while since anyone did it. So that was fun to do. Truck's going to stop a little better now, but yeah, it's been a while since I've taken a locking hub apart. It's pretty intense when you start getting into it.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're just like, wait, how many springs came out of this? And
You're
it's
holding
when
like
you're,
all the different
degreasing.
washers and components, and there's like 4 different tiers you have to take apart with different fasteners. I could just imagine going to a quick lube and just like you're not getting your truck back.
No, it's ours now.
I love that thing though.
Very cool. No,
How
I
about
know
you,
that
man?
thing's cool.
Turn any wrenches?
Sort of. I'm deeper into the woods, the saga that is the Lexus LS security system. Without spending an impossibly big chunk of time discussing it. So I took it to another very well respected, they're a company. All they do is they handle electronics and programming on cars.
Okay.
So mostly they'll get called out by, and I know them from when I was working in the insurance stuff, because normally they'll go to body shops for like theft recoveries where like electronic stuff was screwed up, or like when airbags are deployed, and it's beyond the scope of a body shop reprogramming an SRS system and stuff like that. And so they come out and they do all the things. I had them look at it, and they had the car a day, and so they scan it and they're like, hey, there's only supposed to be 2 master keys and 2 valet keys registered to the car. There's 4 slots. 2 and 2 is what you're supposed to have. It currently has 3 master keys programmed to it and 1 valet key. I don't have any of the functioning master keys, period. And I have the valet key, which will start the car, but it won't do any of the keyless functionality. I can't reset the maintenance monitor, so it's like permanently screaming at me to change my oil, even though I've changed it.
Right.
I can't get in the trunk unless I physically use the key. Like a bunch of really annoying little quibbles, because I only have the valet key, and then I got a replacement master key, but nobody, not even the dealership, can figure out how to program it. Well, now I figured out why. They're like, well, all the key slots are out. So the only way to fix this is you have to wipe them all and then program from scratch. But you're not supposed to program them from scratch. You're supposed to have at least 1 master key. It's some god awful oversight in, I don't know.
This sounds incredibly not Lexus to me.
Right.
This sounds like a BMW 2004-5 issue. Yeah.
So I've found, and what happens is, so if you try and like do that and then reprogram from scratch, there's like a 50-50 chance that you can, like, I found like on forums, people are like, oh yeah, you have to go to this like fly by night third party to get like a seed code in order to be able to program it, and it goes to some master database, and it's like a whole thing. And these guys are like, yeah, there's like, it might work, but if it doesn't work, your car is bricked forever, because the only other then fix would be to replace these 3 different security modules,
Oh God.
all
dude.
of which are NLA from Lexus. They don't exist anymore.
So you'd have to buy used ones, and
You can't even do that because they're all, it'll error out because it'll be keyed to a VIN which doesn't match any of the other VINs in the BCM and the rest of the car. So they're going to conflate, and they're just going to like brick all over again, because it's like they're from different vehicles, and you can't wipe them. And so, and even if I could get the parts are like $8,000 for all the parts when they were available, and they're NLA. You can't get them. So I can either find someone that has that scanner and is willing to like roll the dice and see if it'll fix, or brick.
No brick, no brick.
Exactly. Yeah, no whammies, no whammies. So I've just been still driving it, and what sucks is it's like, it's probably a $15,000+ car if I continue to like fix the things, but it's
potentially $10.
Yeah, or it's worth, or I brick it and it's worth scrap.
Yeah.
Ooh. And it's a great car, and so I'm in this like flux of like,
yeah, you're right, because you won't get the upside if it doesn't have the full functionality key, but at the same time, that's a huge risk.
Yeah, it's like it's handicapped until I can either brick it or fix it, and I don't know. So that's where I'm at. I don't have any real solution yet, other than it's a bummer, and it's annoying. And then I keep driving it. I'm like, oh man, like I have something in the trunk. Let me like take the little key that comes out of the fob and like get it up in the thing, and it's just like, it's so clunky and shitty. So yeah, that's the progress that I've made.
It sounded painful.
Yes, and very much like this podcast probably sounded painful to all of the listeners, as it usually does. The one bright shining moment and only bastion of hope here for your ears is the sultry dulcet tones of one Zach Miller. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks a ton,
pod today.
Thanks for having me over here. It was fun.
Yeah, do you have any parting shots for us and the listeners at home?
No, I mean, I'm thrilled that I passed the quiz. I was nervous about that because, you know, I'm a pretty nerdy guy with cars, as you can tell, but sometimes the database of knowledge can just overwhelm and makes me guess what I really know and what I don't know. But
it's okay. I've gone entire chunks of time forgetting that Volkswagen existed as a brand in some of these quizzes. So you're already punching above your weight and putting me to shame generally. So well played, sir. Yeah, thanks for all of y'all listeners for playing along at home and continuing to listen. If you want to keep doing that, just keep finding us, the Pointless Automotive Podcast. I just discovered we're big in New Zealand, so that's dope. And so thank you, New Zealanders, and I suppose everyone else, for listening along on all the various podcasting listening devices. We have an Instagram that we never do anything with, so don't check that out at APA Podcast. And we have, if you're not watching along at home, that's shame on you. And that's on the YouTubes. That's APA Podcast there under the Pointless Automotive Podcast. How about you, Chadwick? Where can the humans find you?
My own personal endeavors, Auto Obsessive Garage, rescues, restorations, and reviews. Sometimes on Instagram, but not at all that much. Mm-hmm. Frank, how about you?
I'm the Photographer's Garage on some of the things. Yeah, you'll figure it out. Farmers only, mostly. Zach, do you want people to stalk you or no? It's up to you.
Plug it, buddy. Plug whatever you got.
I have much to plug, man. I've got a very low social media footprint. So outside of
God bless you, sir.
Yeah, I feel like that back in the car business, though, I should really get the Instagram going. But for now, not much.
There you go. Yeah, you can just take like macro photos of like, or just all you should do is you should start an Instagram account. Simply call it "What's Wrong with My Toyota," and every day you post a new, slightly different, like 5-second video clip of the sounds that your 4Runner's making.
Except that it's a low mileage Toyota, so he's gonna like get this one resolved, and then there's gonna be no content for like 5 years.
Oh, all like I said, also slowly restoring a 4Runner. That'll be
that's kind of exactly that's a thing.
Fixing what ain't broke.
I'll just post out polls What should I replace next? Alternator that I didn't need, or
I think you're onto something. That sounds like gold. Well, yeah. So, well, again, thank you for coming on and putting up with us. Thank you all as the listeners, and until next time.
As always, take care, guys. Thank you.